Hey guys, Chris here. Today we have a story about two hikers that do a very simple day hike in the San Jacinto Mountains of Southern California in March of this year, 2025. And what they didn't realize is they were about to vanish into one of the most brutal survival stories in modern hiking history. That's next. Okay, so I am in the cabin tonight, and we are going to be doing the beer review at the end of the video so we can get right into this story here. So our story takes place in Southern California in the San Jacinto Mountains. In this mountain range is the San Bernardino National Forest. And this is where Veda Lin and her guy, Chris Ng, went for a day hike. Just a simple day hike in this national forest. Their goal was just to go up this ridge, and kind of a simple trip, and just go up this ridge as far as they could and then come back before sunset. They didn't bring much gear. They just had light jackets, sweatpants, no sleeping bags, no backpacks, just their cell phones. And they're in this San Jacinto wilderness, 32,000 acres, very steep country, very rugged country, and this Mount Tahquitz is 8,900 feet tall. Very abrupt and steep on either side, and they were heading towards this ridge. And they noticed the temperature dropping. It was getting colder. It started out, it was about 40 degrees, and it felt closer to about 30. And dropping. This is about 3 p.m. in the afternoon. And also the wind started picking up. And they're going up this ridge, and there was some snow on the ground. Not a lot, but there was a layer of snow and ice. And they got to this point where they're got this beautiful view looking out over this ridge, down in this canyon, and they're admiring this view. And then Chris slips on the ice. And at the same time, Veda slips, and they both went over this edge. And it wasn't a cliff, but it wasn't a hill. It was this very steep slope. And they grabbed onto each other, and they hit the ground and started rolling down this steep slope, narrowly missing large boulders that most likely would have killed them, as well as trees. And they went down this slope for 800 feet. Crazy. And they're just hanging on to each other. And before they got to the bottom, they let go to try to grab onto the ground. And they both separated. And now they're sliding and rolling. And then they hit this bottom. Chris is battered and bleeding. He's laying there, and he can feel his leg, and it feels like it's broken, at the very least fractured. And in a panic, he looks to the left and the right. He doesn't see Veda. And he tries to get up, and he can't because of his legs. So he rolls over onto his stomach, and he pushes himself up, and he starts crawling, looking for Veda. He doesn't see her. He calls out her name, and as he's crawling, he's going around the tree, another tree, and then he sees Veda up ahead. She's laying on the ground in the snow as well, and she's battered. Her face is bleeding. He comes up to her, and he's talking to her, and she's got facial trauma. Her head slammed into a rock, and she's got a big bruise on the side of her head. Feels like a broken sternum, and her spine fractured, maybe worse. And he's very cautious to not move her, and then relieved that they're both still alive and that he found Veda. And then he realizes he's checking his pockets. He lost his phone on the fall. Veda's laying there. She checks her jacket, finds her phone. She pulls it out. It's on. But she notices the battery's low, very low. And so with a shaky hand, she taps 911 to try to get through to emergency. Like a miracle, she gets through to emergency dispatch and she tells them what had happened. They're both injured, bottom of the steep slope, San Bernardino National Forest. She describes the route, about where they fell, about what side of the slope that they fell. And she remembered the map from earlier, and she gave them very clear details about where they were. They said, okay, hold on, stay put, we'll get there as soon as we can. She hangs up, and within 2 minutes, her phone dies. Miracle number one. Actually, miracle number two. Number one is they went down the slope and they didn't die. All they can do now is wait. And as they're waiting, the sun is quickly going down and the temperatures are dropping. Soon it was dark. And they're sitting there in the dark and the wind picks up. Now they're in very light clothes, light jackets, sweatpants, no food and water. And all they can do was they moved towards this tree and sat under this tree to try to stay out of the wind. And they huddled together to use their body heat for warmth. That's all they had. Chris had lost a shoe and his foot was freezing. Wet sock, freezing foot. And they sat there in the darkness, huddled together. All they could do, again, was just sit and wait. So out there in this California wilderness, San Bernardino Mountains, there's wildlife, and this wildlife can be a threat, dangerous threat. Mountain lions, bobcats, definitely a concern, especially when you're injured at night and you're immobilized. And so Veda had this thought about the wildlife, and then after it got dark, in the darkness, they heard growls and movement around them. And I don't know with the wind blowing, how they heard it, how close it was, but they heard growls and animals. And that's when it hit her. If the weather and the cold and the injuries don't kill them, the wildlife might. And so they knew that they needed to stay awake, stay alert, stay vigilant, to stay warm, because if they fell asleep with the cold and their injuries, they might not wake up. As well as with the wildlife, if the wildlife was to approach a mountain lion or a bobcat, they could at least yell, scream, wave their arms, maybe pick up a rock and throw it at it, try to deter it. So they knew they had to stay awake and get through the night to survive. Then, through the wind, the howling wind, they both could hear the sound of helicopters, 2 of them. It was overcast, howling winds, but they could hear the unmistakable sound of helicopters coming over the treetops in their direction, getting louder. Immediately, they were overjoyed. They felt hope, like, oh my gosh, we're going to survive this. We're going to get through this. Here comes help. And they can see lights looking for them up in the sky, filtering through the cloud cover. And they sat up, and they both couldn't stand up, but they were waving their arms and screaming for everything they were worth. We're down here! We're down here! Help! Help! They're yelling, screaming. And the helicopters were hovering. And then Veda had this terrible realization that there's nowhere for them to land. And with the high winds and the cloud cover, most likely they're not even being seen. They don't even know that they're down there. They're literally 100 feet from help, but they can't get the help. And just as soon as she had that thought, they're both sitting there still yelling. The helicopters start moving away, and it's getting quieter and quieter until it's quiet again, except for the wind blowing. They were now again left to the darkness by themselves. And this was just the beginning of the night. So around 4 a.m., after a sleepless night filled with terror in the darkness, they were coming to the realization that they might not make it. Because Chris had lost his shoe, his foot was now frostbitten. It was swelling up. Things were looking really bad. But what neither of them realized was that the Riverside Mountain Rescue Unit was climbing through the night to get to them. And by 4:30 a.m. that morning, through the wind, the howling wind, they could hear voices calling out their names. And then in the darkness, they saw flashlights coming towards them, and it was the search and rescue. They'd been found. And they came up to them, started talking to them, brought them sleeping bags, jackets, heat pads, got a fire going, started tending to their injuries best they could. And they were finally feeling like they're going to make it. And they were so happy that they'd been found, and they accepted all their help, and things were looking up for them. But because of their injuries, the rescue team determined that Chris and Veda could not just hike out. It was impossible. So once the sun came up, they called in the helicopters again. And as they approached and were flying overhead, Chris and Veda watched with the rescuers as they attempted to land the helicopter. But just like the night before, because of the high wind, the sheer wind gusts, they couldn't do it. So they determined that the helicopters are going to have to come back the next day. So sitting stranded at the base of this cliff with the rescuers, they were going to have to endure another night. Then finally, 3 full days after their fall, the rescue unit was able to get the helicopters in and start airlifting them out. Very dramatic. They were harnessed up and then lifted out of the forest into the helicopters. Chris's injuries were more urgent, and he was brought to the Palm Desert Regional Medical Center, and there they treated his frostbite and his fractured leg. Veda was next. She was airlifted up as well, life flighted to the same hospital. She was treated for her fracture on her face, broken sternum, her spine fractured, and she was treated as well. They were both so grateful to have gotten through this situation, and this is what they had to say about it.
The first thing I remember is like kind of waking up, just like just kind of feeling, do a quick inventory of, how badly I was messed up.
All right, bud, we're gonna get you out here to the hospital, okay?
All right. There's definitely the thought as you're going down, like, oh my gosh, this might be the end of everything.
Both Veda and Chris went on to make full recoveries. This is what Veda said: considering how everything went, the fact that we don't have any permanent injuries, as of now we don't need surgery, is really amazing and a miracle in and of itself. We didn't realize it was 800 feet that we fell until we were with search and rescue. She also said, as long as I could hear Chris breathing, I knew I had to keep going. And Chris said, being huddled together, reassuring each other, that's what kept us alive. And they were very grateful, extremely grateful, that the search and rescuers did their job and made their way to them and saved their lives. And that restored her faith in humanity, is what Veda said. So with that is our story, very recent story that took place in March of this year of Chris and Veda. Now they have a GoFundMe page, and that is called GoFundMe Support Veda and Chris's Recovery Journey. And I'm going to ask you guys if you can make a donation to that GoFundMe page. Their goal is to get to $26,000. They're currently at $24,000 as of today, and that would help them with their medical bills. I'm going to be making a donation as well. I'm going to take the money that I earned from this video. I'm going to donate whatever that is to them, probably even add some, but I'm going to donate to that as well. So I appreciate if you guys could do that. Even $5, $10 would really help. I'll put the link in the description below. So that is our story about Veda and Chris. Okay, guys, we got a quick beer review here. This is from the Four Peaks Brewing Company, Desert Daydream. I like the name. That's kind of fun. And that, I don't know if you can see that. There we go. Desert Daydream. And that is a 6.5 ABV. That is a hazy IPA. And that is hoppy and smooth. So apparently it's going to make you hoppy. I'm happy to give it a shot here. Very light, not even an amber. It's almost whitish. And we're just going to go right to the can here. Desert Daydream. Ooh, wow, very citrusy. It's definitely a hazy. Almost a little fruit lemon kind of taste to it. And very smooth. Kind of a dry finish to it. Yeah, I like that. So that is from the Four Peaks Brewing Company, Desert Daydream. There you go. All right, you guys. Thank you for watching my video once again. And we are gearing up for summer here. Summer's come. I'm looking forward to that. There's going to be a lot of things I'm going to be doing. And so if you like what I do, like and subscribe. And thank you for the comments. And we will see you on the next one. As always, keep hiking.